Ravenbrook. Even its name sounded like a whispered threat, a place where shadows seemed to have a life of their own. The town huddled in the valley, a cluster of dark houses watched over by the brooding mountains. These mountains, ancient and silent, seemed to guard the town, their peaks often lost in the mist. Mist clung to the rooftops, a ghostly shroud that never seemed to lift. It was as if the town was perpetually caught in a twilight zone where time stood still and the sun rarely broke through. Silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the rustle of leaves in the nearby forest, a forest that seemed to press in on all sides, hungry and watchful. The trees whispered secrets to each other, their branches swaying like skeletal fingers. The silence was unsettling. It wasn't peaceful, but rather the kind that held its breath, pregnant with unspoken secrets. Every creak of a wooden door, every distant howl of the wind seemed to carry a hidden message, the kind that made you afraid to break it, lest something terrible be awakened. It was a silence that seemed to watch you, to weigh your every move, making you feel like an intruder in your own home. The town had a way of getting under your skin, of whispering to your deepest fears. It was a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, where every shadow seemed to hide a lurking presence, waiting to pounce. Lily's car crawled through the mist, its headlights struggling to pierce the gloom. The fog was so thick it felt like driving through a cloud, each inch forward a battle against the unknown. The road ahead was barely visible, swallowed by the dense, eerie mist that seemed to cling to everything. She gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing the anxiety that had been building since she received the letter. The tension in her body was palpable, every muscle taut with apprehension. The letter crinkled in her other hand, a stark reminder of why she had returned to this place she had tried so hard to forget. Her mother was gone. The words on the paper were haunting, filled with a sense of urgency and fear that she couldn't ignore. It was as if her mother had known something terrible was coming.
The letter had been brief, penned in her mother's shaky handwriting. It was almost illegible, the words scrawled in haste. Yet the message was clear, a desperate plea for help. It spoke of strange occurrences, of things going bump in the night, unexplained noises, shadows that moved on their own, and a sense of being watched. Her mother had been terrified, and now that fear had transferred to Lily. It begged me to come back to Ravenbrook, to face the shadows that haunted our old family home. The town itself seemed to be a ghost, shrouded in mist and memories. Every corner held a piece of her past, every street a story she had tried to leave behind. I had tried to dismiss it as grief-induced paranoia, but a knot of dread tightened in my stomach with every mile closer to Ravenbrook. The closer she got, the more real the fear became. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for her, something that had been waiting for a long time.
The house loomed before her, a Victorian mansion with peeling paint and boarded-up windows. It stood as a silent sentinel, guarding the memories of a time long past. It hadn't changed much in the years since Lily had left. The same weathered facade, the same air of melancholy that seemed to seep from its very walls, the same creeping ivy clawed at its walls, the same sense of oppressive silence hung over it. It was as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something or someone to return. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of dust and decay. Each breath she took felt heavy, laden with the weight of forgotten years and untold stories.
Each creaking step on the wooden floor echoed in the silence. The sound seemed to reverberate through the empty rooms, amplifying the loneliness that pervaded the house. The furniture was draped in white sheets, ghostly figures in the dim light that filtered through the grimy windows. They stood like silent sentinels, guarding the secrets of the past. A sudden noise from upstairs made me jump, my heart pounding in my chest. The sound was unexpected, shattering the stillness and sending a jolt of fear through me. It was probably just the wind, I told myself. But even as I tried to calm my racing heart, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. But the silence that followed was thick with anticipation, making my skin crawl. Every shadow seemed to hide a secret, every creak a whisper of the past. The house was alive with echoes, and I was caught in its haunting embrace.
Memories flickered through Lily's mind. Her mother, her face etched with worry, warning her about the woods.
Never go into the woods alone, Lily, especially not at night.
Lily had dismissed it as a mother's paranoia, but now, standing in the stillness of the house, those memories took on a sinister edge.
I could almost hear the wind whispering through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of my mother's warnings. The woods held secrets, I realized. Secrets that my mother had known. Secrets that I was now determined to uncover.
The next day, Lily ventured into town. The streets were nearly deserted, the few faces she passed staring at her with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. She found her way to the local diner, a greasy spoon called the Rusty Lantern.
You're Mary's girl. Haven't seen you around here in years.
Lily tried to engage her in conversation, hoping to learn more about her mother's last days.
Some things are best left buried, dear.
Her eyes flickered towards the woods beyond the town. Lily's search for answers led her to the town library, a dusty building that smelled of old books and forgotten stories. The librarian, a wiry old man with thick glasses perched precariously on his nose, greeted her with a scowl. He introduced himself as Mr. Thorne, the town historian.
Looking for answers, are you?
He seemed to know why she was there. He warned her about digging too deep into the town's past.
Some things are best left undisturbed.
His words echoed the waitress's earlier sentiment. Back at the house, Lily made a startling discovery. Tucked away in the attic, beneath a pile of dusty linens, was a leather-bound journal. It was her mother's. The pages were filled with hurried handwriting, chronicling strange occurrences in the town.
Strange lights in the woods, whispers on the wind, and people disappearing without a trace.
Interspersed throughout the text were strange symbols, like something out of an ancient language. Lily studied them intently. They seemed familiar, but she couldn't quite place them. As Lily delved deeper into her mother's journal, a chilling pattern emerged. The strange occurrences, the whispers, the symbols, they all seemed to precede a disappearance. It was as if the town itself was claiming people, swallowing them whole.
What secrets did they know? What were they hiding? And what had happened to my mother? Was she just another victim of whatever darkness haunted Ravenbrook?
A cold dread settled over Lily. She thought back to Sarah's reluctance to speak, to Mr. Thorne's warnings. The thought sent chills down her spine. Driven by a mixture of fear and determination, Lily decided to confront Mr. Thorne. She returned to the library, her mother's journal clutched tightly in her hand.
You know what's happening, don't you?
She accused, her voice trembling. Mr. Thorne sighed. He looked older, wearier, as if the weight of the town's secrets was finally catching up to him.
It's not safe for you here, child. You need to leave. Forget about this place.
Not until I know what happened to my mother,
she said, her voice firm. That night, unable to sleep, Lily decided to revisit the library. She had seen a map of the town in the journal, marked with the same strange symbols that haunted her dreams. Perhaps it held a clue to the town's mystery, to her mother's fate. As she crept through the darkened stacks, she felt a presence behind her. She whirled around, her heart pounding in her chest, but there was nothing there. Just the shadows, lengthening in the dim light.
Did I just hear a whisper? My name?
She could have sworn she heard a whisper, carried on the edge of the wind. Just as Lily reached for the map, a hand clamped down on her shoulder. She gasped, spinning around to find herself face to face with Mr. Thorne. But his eyes were wide with fear, his face ashen in the moonlight filtering through the window.
It's too late. He's here.
Lily followed his gaze to the library door. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, shrouded in shadow. The figure took a step forward, and Lily's blood ran cold. she recognized the glint of something metallic in the figure's hand. Before she could scream, the figure lunged,